When you're doing your zero system runs, you're going to see a bunch of modifiers on your run. Here's anxiety, loss, gangrene, plague, neglect. So let's go over what all of the different modifiers are, their effects. I'll also link to the Google Doc, I guess, for anybody who just wants to see what all of the stuff is. And also, we can talk about which effects are easy to deal with, which ones are hard. There's some that I think you might even want to look for. I think they might make your runs a little bit easier, if anything. So here are all of the modifiers you can have on your codexes in Zero System. This is the text directly from the game. Here's the quick summary. But there's Tyrant, Elite, Plague, Loss, Gangrene, Rage, Harden, Revenge, Neglect, and Anxiety. Down here is just about how hard I think they are, which we'll talk about later. But they have, or some of them have, levels. So Tyrant goes from level 1 to level 4, for example, scaling like 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, whereas certain stuff like Neglect and Anxiety, it's just the one level. So Tyrant increases the HP and attack of bosses and elites. This is in the no tier, because giving 40% both attack and HP is going to make these bosses pretty ridiculous, I think. Like, if it was just HP, it would still be pretty bad, but maybe manageable, but both of them together is definitely not happening. You think about certain bosses, like the Blue Pot interior boss, that just really, puts a hard time limit on your run pretty much with how much damage he puts out. So, yeah, no, we're not doing that. The second one is Elite. This just increases the amount of elite spots in your run. This is honestly a beneficial one, if anything, because elites, once you get to the interior, honestly, the elites feel like they're easier than some of the normal fights. The interior have some pretty insane normal fights in there. Also, elites give you gear, so more elite spots means more chances for you to get gear. It's a pretty good thing, if anything, so this is in the easy tier for sure. And then there is Plague. This decreases your max HP by up to 50%. This also goes in the no tier. I think that, this is honestly maybe playable depending on your setup, but you're going to have a much easier time just avoiding this. And unless you're playing specifically a shielding comp, missing 50% of your max HP is going to get you killed pretty quickly, because you can't heal if you've already lost all of your HP. And then there is Loss. It gives you less credits from battle spots. I actually don't think this one's that bad. It's pretty doable. Like, you're missing credits from your battle spots, but you can get credits from events and stuff. Also, one of the fates that you can get at the start gives you 400 credits in exchange for not being able to pick up credits from battle spots anymore, but if you're only getting 30% of your credits from battle spots, it's a pretty good trade-off right there. So if you manage to luck into that fate, it's pretty nice. So this goes into the not bad tier. I think it's one of the easier ones to deal with. And then there is Gangrene, which this is mistranslated. So it says max health decreases by 2% at the start of each turn, which it's 1%, 2%, 3%. This doesn't actually decrease your max HP. What happens is it decreases your current HP at the end of each turn by a percentage of your max HP. So at Gangrene 2, every turn you are losing 2% of you're taking 2% of your max HP as damage, basically, is how I would put it. This is one of the ones that also might qualify as beneficial. You're not taking that much damage. 3% is a lot less than you would expect. I think especially if you're playing basic teams with Mika, you find yourself overhealing a lot, and taking a little bit of damage means that you get free stress relief, pretty much. It's honestly mildly beneficial for stress management, if anything. And if you're playing a shielding team, then it doesn't really matter. So I think this one goes in the easy tier, one of just easily the second easiest modifier if I had to pick. And then there is Rage. So Rage enemies get Fury every 3 turns. Fury is a smaller version of Morale. It gives the enemy 10% extra damage. So at Rage 2, they get 2 Fury. They basically get 1 Morale every 3 turns. 3 turns is a lot more than you think it is. Especially when you are fighting certain bosses, like you think about, I'm just gonna, like, this is probably like one of the hardest bosses, the Blue Pot interior boss. That guy's putting a hard time limit on your run. Like, that fight is not lasting more than like 10 turns probably. So it doesn't really matter if he's getting like one morale every 3 turns, because he's not getting more than like 2 or 3 probably. So this is definitely a lot easier than it seems. If you try to stall out into normal fights and elites, it can get dicey though. But I think this is definitely doable as long as your units and your deck is strong enough. Could potentially get a bit dicey though. Next up is Harden. It's basically the inverse of Rage. And this one goes into the depends on map one, because Resolve increases the amount of shielding that you get. How many mobs are actually shielding is the real question. In a lot of stages, it's really just the small mobs, and if it's just the small mobs, it's not super consequential. I say depends on map, because please do not pick this in the 5th map in Chaos. Like, every single mob just spams shields there. If you are giving them Resolve, it's probably not going to feel too good. The turn thing still applies. Like, 3 turns is a lot longer than you think, but just don't pick this in the final map where every single mob is spamming shields. Some other maps have, like, other mobs, like, that do shields. I think map 4 has a decent amount of shielding mobs, and, like, the other maps you'll just see, like, little baby, like, mobs with shields, but the bosses in and elites in map 5 tend to shield a lot, so this is definitely, do not take Harden into that one. Next up is Revenge. Enemies get Fury when other monsters die, 1 or 2. So basically at level 2, it's 1 morale when a monster dies. This also depends on the map. So the little red fights, especially depending on what you're fighting, I think very commonly in the 2nd map, the small fights have a lot of mobs together. So you'll be giving them a bunch of morale, which can be rough. But as long as, like I said, pretty much same thing as Rage. As long as your deck is strong enough, you should be able to just clear them out pretty quickly. The thing about map 2 is more so the bosses. The bosses summon a lot of adds, and it can get very dicey. Especially the first one, where he gets stronger after he kills the adds. And if he kills them, now he's getting like twice as strong. And even if you kill his adds, he will get strong anyways. So this is really, really bad in map 2. Map 1 has a kind of interesting one where the first boss, the crab guy, summons little aqua balls, and the aqua balls do give him a bit of the aqua balls give him a bit of like fury after you kill them, but the aqua balls are kind of already buffing him, so you could opt to just ignore them and you would kind of have the exact same outcome, whether like you kill them or not, because if you leave them alive, they buff him damage, and if you kill them, he gets damage, and then he summons them again, so might as well not kill them at all. You do have to deal with like their little shields, but not a huge deal. And then there is Neglect. This discards 1 card randomly at the start of each run. I'm going to put this in the kind of rough tier. It's clicked here by itself. I think this could be hard to work with, could be like okay. I did a run with it and I had no issues at all, honestly. I was kind of surprised how easy it was, but I think it was, honestly, I had really good RNG that run. There's definitely, like, imagine you draw your hand and you toss out the best card in your hand every single turn. That is very, very annoying. There is one really interesting thing, though. I haven't seen anybody actually get this yet, because I don't think a lot of people are picking up this modifier. But when you enter the interior, there is a certain fate you can get that draws 1 card when you discard a card. And discard meaning you have to actually discard the card. You can't just play a card. I wonder if that basically neutralizes Neglect. Like, Neglect discards a card, and then you draw a different card. Still going to be issues, of course, because, like I said, Neglect can just toss out the best card in your hand every single turn. But I do wonder if that, like, the fate works together with Neglect. I'm kind of curious. And then there is Anxiety. Cannot rest at campsites. This goes into the not bad tier because Not resting at campsites means that you heal a bit less, which is typically trivial, and a bit less stress management, which is rough, but the way stress works, you're really like, it's not that big of a deal, the stress management, I think, from resting at campsites. The thing that does suck is sometimes the maps sort of force campsites like into your path. And if you have to go into them and you're forced to do training or something and you don't like doing training, then you're kind of just completely wasted tile. But honestly, not that bad. So pretty much to sum it up, I think Elite and Gangrene are like the two easiest ones, if not beneficial to your run. These are definitely the modifiers you want to look for the most. Anxiety, Loss, and Rage are okay. I think Rage is probably the hardest one here to deal with. And then Revenge and Harden are okay. It just depends on which map you're doing. Make sure that the boss isn't going to absolutely obliterate you because you decided to pick up this modifier, like Revenge in map 2 and potentially map 1, Harden for map 5. Neglect, you can try it out and see how you feel about it. I think it's one of the harder ones, but not unplayable or anything. And then Plague and Tyrant are definitely the two hardest ones that should generally be avoided at all costs. So that is it for the modifier guide, I guess. I'll leave the link to this Excel in the description and the pinned comment just for anybody who wants to see it. Or you can just take a screenshot or something. Anyways, see you guys next time.